Windsor sits right across from Detroit, a city that's become a global symbol of creative reinvention and rebuilding on your own terms. Was that part of the pull to shoot there? And does that border town energy show up in the films at all?
Windsor was really attractive for a lot of reasons. About 20 years ago, one of the things that people don't know I did was bring the first group of feature films to Northern Ontario. We shot the first big budget feature in Sault Ste. Marie. We taught 2 or 3 big movies with big stars in Sudbury. We brought things to North Bay. We worked with the government of the day who had just realized that, hey, resource exploitation isn't necessarily about pulling rocks out of the ground. It's about where do we have resources? And we have resources in the abilities of our young people. Yeah. So we were able to tap into the Northern Ontario funding that it was previously only been used for timber and mining, and make a number of feature films in Northern Ontario. And you can look at them today. We made Compulsion with Heather Graham and Carrie Ann Moss. We made A Dark Truth with Forrest Whitaker and Andy Garcia. The list goes on, the big movies we took up to the north. Yeah. And there's now an industry in Northern Ontario. It's nicely established. Oh, I would also say, I brought Mark Montefiore up to Sudbury to make the movie Cass and Dylan, starring Tatiana Maslany and some Oscar winner, Richard Dreyfuss, and showed Mark how to access that money. And Mark subsequently took Shoresy up there. He took Letterkenny up there. He's been a bedrock of the industry in Sudbury. So I saw what was good and bad about going into unbroken ground and making movies in these cities. We chased a funding model back then, and it was really very successful for us. There is no funding model for Windsor, Ontario, but there is a city that is one of the most interesting, vibrant cities in Southern Ontario that doesn't have a film community yet. There are some great filmmakers who live in Windsor by choice. A first AD who I've worked with many times lives in Windsor. There are a couple of great directors in town making their own movies, but there isn't an established industry in Windsor. And I felt, and Windsor is one of the larger cities in Ontario, right? It's bigger than, that's probably about the same size as Kingston, which has got a bit of an industry going now. Mm-hmm. So we thought, okay, here's an opportunity to go somewhere where we're bringing these students and they're not going to be eclipsed by, here's an episode of Star Trek that's taking up all of downtown for a month. That they can go in and they can actually be the filmmakers in town, as opposed to an afterthought, which they would be in a lot of other jurisdictions. That was part of it. Part of it is we met with the civic leadership in Windsor, and they're great people. And that's what happened to me in Sudbury. That's what happened to me in Sault Ste. Marie. That's what happened in North Bay. And I thought, you find great people in the local government, and we're bringing something to them, and they acknowledged it. We are not getting any funding by going to Windsor. I want to be really clear, because people think you're always chasing that funding dollar. The city is not giving us any additional funding. The province isn't giving us any additional funding for working in Windsor. We did apply to the Canada Summer Jobs Program, and we're spending several $1 million on student labor this summer. We got a grant of $12,500 from the Canada Summer Jobs Program. And great, happy to take it.
Yeah.
But the program is not about chasing these funding opportunities. The program is, here's a great city to work in, where the kids can be the focus of what's going on in town. And we wanted that for them. What also happens that we're calling the show Walkerville. Walkerville is a part of Windsor, one of the most historic parts of Windsor. We are going to be shooting at Walkerville Collegiate, which happens to be Windsor's High School of the Arts. The kids at Walkerville Collegiate are not working as technicians on our movie. They're too young, but in a few years they will be.
Plus, Windsor has a really cool kind of classic feel to it. Just like the location itself is really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's going to play really well.
It's a beautiful city.
Yeah.
It's got so many periods to it of prosperity, which left architectural gems behind. It does have this incredible, backdrop, which is Detroit. Right? It's funny because when you're in Windsor, like I'm lived most of my life in Toronto. The water is south. Right? From Toronto, the water, you see water, you're looking south. Well, Windsor is actually south of Detroit, not north of it.
That's the only
So
thing.
when you see the river,
Yeah.
you're looking north at Detroit. So you're in downtown Windsor, which just in this, and you look down Willette Street, the main street, I'm feeling like I'm looking south, but I know I'm looking north, and I see a big city because it blends, because you don't see the river and it blends, and you're in a big city. So when we tell our stories, of course, there's an advantage to seeing a larger city in the landscape. It makes some of the stories more approachable if they feel more urban.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to use that in the background. Are you playing it as if it's all the stories take place in Windsor, or are you?
All the stories take place in Windsor. Windsor is our Degrassi.
Yes. That's the gold standard, essentially.
I love Degrassi.
Yeah.
I've loved it since Degrassi Jr., not the kids of Degrassi Street.
Was that back in the 80s? That would have been like that was,
Linda Schuyler, Stephen Stone, two of the foundational people to our industry. Oh, and I would mention that Stephen Stone co-wrote all of Alannah Miles' hit songs.
Whoa. He's wearing all the hats, this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Are there any traits of a script that crosses your desk and immediately holds your attention? What is it that specifically you look for in something that you'd like to develop?
Can I answer this one? Yeah, I can talk all day, Trevor, about this topic. To answer your second question about what specifically do you look for, something you'd like to develop. So every company, if you're a freelance producer, I guess that's different. But if you're looking for a company, they always have mandates. Every 3 months or so. Oh, we're looking for horror scripts with diverse leads, or we're looking for comedies with these elements. So that really dictates what you're looking to develop. Obviously, there's so much content and material out there. What we look for, like traits we look for that come across our desk that holds our attention. A script, you probably heard this before, must grab your attention in the first few pages, because there's just so much content, and reading a script is such a long process and really takes a lot of your time, and there's just so much kind of flowing through your desk that if it's not an interesting script in the first few pages, we're talking like 3 pages, maybe 5, then likely we're just going to pass without reading the entire thing. And so you really need that hook, and it really needs to grab your attention right away. What does this mean? How do you do that? The writer must have a unique voice, and you can see that in their prose and writing right away. And that unique voice translates into character, which is the most important part of a script. If I can feel this character and it's unique and they stand out in some way in the first few pages, then that's a script I want to read. And, that's a script I will likely finish. And once in a while, you do find those. Not often, but you do.
Okay.
And I don't want to speak out of turn, but all the scripts that we've written, these students have written, I should say, each one has their own very unique voice, and each one really, really stands out. And we've heard nothing but positive feedback from everybody who's read it so far.
Right. And they're rooted in Canadian themes as well as being rooted in family as well, like you mentioned. So that's super.
Absolutely. We were doing the opposite of Euphoria on HBO.
Right. Okay. That's, what the world needs more of that, I think, perhaps.
We love Euphoria. That's a great show. We're doing the opposite.
Very well. Yeah. Yeah. It's just very dark. Right?
Well, there's the incredibly democratic aspect of YouTube, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's an audience for something, they can find it on YouTube. There's no longer a filter between a great story and its intended audience.